Looks like we do have a quorum.
All right, well, I will call the meeting to order then. Shall we do introductions and so we can cover everybody? Let's do. My name is Bob Bryant, out of Sisters, retired ODOT. Quick introductions, John.
I'm John Livingston with Full Access High Desert. I work with adults with developmental and intellectual disabilities in the Tri-County area.
How about you,
Rob.
Casey?
I'm Casey Berg, Oregon State University Cascades.
I'm Rob Foster, longtime resident of Bend.
I'm Trevor Johnson. I'm with the Regional Advisory Committee for Redmond.
Thanks, Trevor.
Coming back around, it's Eric Lint. I'm just off the camera there. Strategy Program Manager for Cascades East Transit.
Eileen Kiley, representing the transportation desert that is South County.
Jordan Oldie, and I'm our only surviving original member.
That's
And then, I ran the bus.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Brian Potwin, Community Options Executive Director.
Derek Hoffbauer, CYC Outreach and Engagement Administrator, and I do have to leave in a half an hour, apologize. Wife's in Salem, gotta take the daughter from school.
I'm Randy. I was invited by Rod.
okay. Thanks for being here.
She's from the county.
How about on the, Nick, you want to start us off on the
Good
video
afternoon.
link?
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon, Nick Sneed.
Can't hear you, Nick.
Oops.
Can you hear me now?
Just a moment, folks online. We're having audio troubles.
Hold on a second, Nick.
I can hear you, Nick.
I look like Tim could hear him.
And could I have someone say something online?
Hello, can you hear me?
Here's just a moment.
Tammy, can you hear him?
Yes.
Oh,
Can
we
you
can't
hear
hear
me?
you either. Yeah,
Okay.
There.
they can hear each other.
Great when it works.
Okay, let's try again there.
Hello, I'm Nick Sneed. I'm the Community Development Director with the City Matters.
All right, we can hear you now. Thank you, Nick.
Anybody? No. Annette?
I'm Jessica Wright, from the Community Relations Manager for the City of Bend Police Department.
Thanks, Jessica. Annette?
Tammy Beanie, Executive Director. Oh, sorry.
Thanks, Tammy. Janet Yerandi Gonzalez, Business and Facility Manager at the Environmental Center in Bend.
Denise?
Denise Labuda, resident of Bend.
And Kim?
Kieran?
Karen, thank you.
Hi, everyone. Kieran Stryker, Cogwild Bicycle Tours.
All right, we'll move into the agenda. First item up is any public comments or?
Freddie.
Freddie.
Freddie, wanted
Oh, sorry, Freddie.
Yeah, sorry about that. Freddie finished with that, he, him, advisory committee delegate for Ben.
Thank you. Did I miss anybody else? Anybody? Okay. Now looking down at the agenda, next item up would be public comments or comments from anyone here on anything not on the agenda today. Eric?
We do have a public comment. Karen, who is online with us, she submitted a written statement, which I printed out for the committee here. They're along with the presentation slides on the table. We'll enter those comments into the minutes. And since Karen is here, I think we'll open up the floor to Karen. Let me stop sharing and we'll give you the screen.
Okay. Thank you, Eric. Hi, everyone. Kieran Stryker. My husband Lev and I own and operate Cogwild Bicycle Tours. We're a small family-owned business that has operated in Bend since 2006. We provide daily guided mountain bike rides, skills instruction, and shuttles to the popular mountain bike trailheads along the Cascade Lakes Highway. Thank you for the opportunity to submit public comment on, I guess, regarding transit to trails. So while we're excited to live in a community that provides public transportation to federal lands and increases access to the outdoors through the Transit to Trails program, the practical application of transit to trails with stops at mountain bike trailheads has had a significant negative impact on our mountain bike shuttle business in both 2003 and 2004. Oh, I'm sorry, 2023 and 2024. Outdoor recreation is a big part of Bend's tourism economy. Small businesses like Cog Wild Bicycle Tours contribute to the vibrancy and sustainability of Bend as a destination for outdoor recreation and help make it a great place to live. Cog Wild is a for-profit business that needs to bring in enough income in order to operate a service. Since we began operating regular mountain bike shuttles in 2010, we have worked hard to fine-tune a schedule and a price per seat that allows us to pay our drivers fairly and maintain a van fleet. We'd like to find ways to stay viable as a business with direct competition from transit to trails for summer mountain bike shuttle customers. Cog Wild encourages Cascades East Transit and Transit to Trails to revisit some of the data cited in that feasibility study and return to the original intents of that FLAP grant to increase access to the outdoors for underserved communities. Eric was kind enough to give us some time last Friday, so we came in and chatted with him about some options and a few things that we came up with that could increase access to low socioeconomic groups and provide for a diversity of recreational activities include perhaps Transit to Trails could charge more than $5 per seat. That rate undercuts our current rates by 75%. We can't operate for $5. So we could definitely come down and price match, but we definitely can't make it if we're only charging $5 a seat. And I'm guessing that Cascades East Transit can also not sustain that without grant funding. Right now, the way it's set up, the Transit to Trails drops off primarily at mountain biking trailheads. Mountain biking is a really high barrier to entry sport in terms of skill and in terms of the equipment needed for it. And we encourage you to offer some drop-off spots for hiking or picnicking, bird watching, all other kinds of low barrier to entry activities in the outdoors. So perhaps drop down the 41 road, pick up or drop people off at Lava Island Falls, pick them up there later. Could you go past Mount Bachelor and drop off at, oh gosh, what is it? Devils and Green Lakes trailheads? That would be awesome. That would allow people, it would decrease cars at those really busy parking spots. And I think it would be easy enough for Cascades East Transit to share the wilderness permit program, and that offers really nice, unique opportunities for people. We also encourage Cascades East Transit to consider starting this on the north side, east side, or south sides, which tend to have more socioeconomic diversity than the base start for the Transit to Trails being the west side of Bend, which the west side of Bend is probably the most affluent zip code in the region that's served, and I don't think you're reaching underserved communities there. One of the ideas that we did talk about with Eric was putting some verbiage on Transit to Trails website that directs people that need some more support with mountain biking, whether it's through bike rentals or guide services, to link them to us so that we could recoup some of the business that we've lost. We're open to all kinds of ideas to have both of these options for people to access the outdoors continue as long as possible, but we really like to recoup some of our shuttle business so that we can stay in business and hire people and contribute to the recreation economy in Bend, Oregon. Thank you for this opportunity. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Karen. Eric, what's our status? We got time to talk about this?
Yeah,
Between now and when the season starts up again, or?
we'll definitely be taking a look at things and, you know, this program was funded by a federal lands access program grant. That's limited in nature. We have it extended into this next year with less funding than we had last year. So what this program looked like last year and the year before is not what it's gonna look like this coming year. We have an opportunity to retool things. We really want folks like Karen at the table talking about how we can make this work for the community better. So we'll have more details at future meetings on what this is gonna look like, but we'll be getting started in the next couple months here,
Okay.
having those talks.
And I welcome the opportunity to be included in those conversations moving forward.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. All right, thank you, Karen. Any questions or follow-up thoughts or
No.
comments on it?
I just wanted to say thank you, Karen. This is a very well thought out proposal and it gives us a lot to work with.
Very good.
Especially in light of what's, changes we're gonna face, we should look at. How we serve where you can't so that we can maximize the access and. I'm grateful that you stepped forward and plenty of time for us to work on it.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Anyone else?
We have a hand from Yonit.
Sure, what's up, sir?
We have a hand from Yonit.
Okay,
Yeah, just a follow-up question. You mentioned specifically serving underserved communities, and I'm just wondering if you have any sort of data or surveys or something that you've done to your customers to kind of substantiate some of that.
Was that for us, Yonit?
Sure.
That's for,
No, that was for Karen.
We don't have a mandate to do underserved communities, but the transit to trails does. However, we are a permittee on the on public lands, so we're an equal opportunity provider to outdoor recreation. We currently work with Vominos Outside. We've been working with them for 5 years. We also do programs for Boys and Girls Club, Realms High School, a number of community things, but that's just at our discretion and people who reach out to us. We have all kinds of sliding scales for that, but we are a private for-profit business.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
other questions or follow-up? Okay. All right, we'll move on then. Any other public comments or comments from people in the room on items not on the agenda? Okay, all right, we'll move on then. Approval of minutes from our October meeting, October 16th. Anybody get a chance and want to make a motion?
I'll move that we accept.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand. Yes, thank you. Anybody opposed or have comments on the minutes? Perfect. All right. Chair and vice chair appointments. Eric, you want to help me with this?
Yeah, so last meeting, we had a robust discussion on this and then tabled the item on the agenda to this meeting. But just again, RPTAC is an advisory body to the CYC board. You're an independent body, you're not beholden to us, I guess, right? So we are here to hear your opinion. You control how this works. The means of your election and your selection of chair and vice chair is up to you. Now, often it's simple call for nominations, seconding, and Robert's rule processes. We have an option for secret ballots if you like, where we can do a vote by acclamation. But typically, you'll take nominations, allow opportunity for a comment from the members, and then hold your vote. Now, just noting that this is a vote for full voting members, so alternates and members of the public. We'll ask you to hang back on this one, but this can operate as you like.
Did you have the nominees from the last time we talked, or are we, is this a start over?
This starts over. So this is a new meeting, new discussion. You can revise those motions from previous meeting, but it was tabled, so you'll probably want to take a motion or call for nomination and move on new nominations.
Oh, and hey, Eric, can I add something? This is Eric. I do want to note that Greg Bryant, he was planning to be here. He had been nominated. Last time his wife is in surgery today, so he expressed that he wasn't able to participate today, but he would still,
Like his
yeah, he's
Okay.
still wanting to pursue that. He just wanted me to pass that information along.
And which one did he want?
What's that?
Which one did he want?
I think chair.
Yes, I had nominated him last time as chair and would repeat that nomination.
I started that.
Are there any other nominations for the chair position?
I think we had nominated Brian.
Brian? All right,
Are you still in favor of doing that?
Yes.
Okay. I nominate you. I nominate you. Okay.
okay, thanks, John. Two nominees, any others or further discussion? All right. How do you want to do this, Eric? Raise of hands or count hands or?
So I apologize, I don't know who the nominees are.
You are, we all agree.
We all agree.
All in favor, say aye.
Go for it.
We talked about Greg Bryant from last time and Brian Potwin, who was here today.
And Yannette declined? Okay.
Yep, okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Take it as a compliment, not pressure.
Yeah.
Really, I meant it as pressure, but okay. Thank you. Why don't we just raise hands?
Do we, yeah, so at this point, we vote and whoever the most votes is chair and second most votes is vice chair.
You can do it that way. I think typically vote specifically for the chair, renominate for the vice chair, vote for the vice chair.
Okay.
All right, so raise of hands for Brian as chair.
Vote for yourself. You're not gonna vote for you?
Oh, sure. I'll go.
So 1, 2, 3, we just need
We need
voting
the
members, right?
Voting members.
Just
Oh.
voting members, sorry.
Just voting members today.
Let me stop the screen share so we can get folks online. So that's Denise and Yannette, both have hands raised. So what's the count there? 6
You got
total? That's 6 votes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
That was 6 votes then.
Let's do online.
That's
the
including
6.
Yep.
okay,
Okay.
votes for Greg. 2 votes for Greg. All right, anybody online? Nope, looks like 2 for Greg. Okay, Brian, I think it looks like we have voted you as chair.
Great.
How long did you do this?
Long time.
This is too long.
So it's a 7-year commitment?
Yeah,
There you go.
It's a great game.
Maybe you should have known this before, but
It's a great game. So for vice chair, are there any other nominations or any nominations for vice chair?
I nominate.
Greg
I
Bryant,
nominate, correct.
all right,
Eileen Kylie.
Eileen Kylie,
Do you want it?
I have a potential conflict, so I'm going to decline.
You could run
thank you, Eileen.
and vote for him.
Any other thoughts or comments
I just,
for vice chair role?
Where'd you go?
Oops, sorry, I'm bringing back the meeting.
Okay, let's see what kind of support we have for Greg Bryant as vice chair. 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like we got 4. And these are only nomination unless I missed something.
So I think that was 7, 5 in the room and 2 online.
Okay,
All right, apologies, just a moment. Looks like with technical issues with our presentation.
is there anything else that we need to nominate
We
for?
need a formal vote on that. Vice Chair.
Should we just
We
try
did.
to, that would have
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Eric, I'm
yes.
subscribed to your channel, but it didn't pop up saying you were live, so I'm curious if it didn't even go.
If not, we'll upload it after the fact.
Okay.
So, yeah,
I didn't see a notification.
we'll be talking about IT about getting a new computer down here.
They wanted to go there.
And there, I'll email Greg, and I'll email, he's now Vice Chair.
What do you got?
I'll email Greg.
Okay,
Let them know.
okay. Perfect. So I assume I should continue on for today and.
I can take it.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go for it, Brian.
I'll just,
Ready.
yeah,
Rob,
throw me in.
Off and running.
100%.
Love it.
You've done your time.
Love it.
You do love it. Well, I just want to quickly say thank you for your support. I'm happy to take on this role as chair. Learned a lot from watching a professional over the last several years, so I hope to take up the reins and do you proud. Great, so we've got an excellent agenda. We're moving forward here, I think, on time, which is the kind of meeting I like to host. So next up, we've got a director's update from Bob Townsend. You want to take it away, Bob?
Yeah, sure, thank you. So one of the things that's very important to me is, and as I said last time, very thankful for everybody to serve on these type of committees and volunteer their time and ideas and things like that. At the same time, CET has a responsibility to make sure these are valuable meetings, and that's not just talking at you, and certainly there's some information sharing that should go on, but there's also the feedback role that is the most important to us. And so today we have quite a few areas where we want to get some feedback. And again, this isn't meant to be, we answer to a board as well. We'll talk about fairs, for example, here a little bit. The COIC board has, final say on fairs, but I'll be at city council work session tonight talking about their input. We'll certainly get this group's input. And so it's more of a broader, we don't need necessarily motions on I vote for $2.25. That's not what we're talking about. It's just general concerns, consensus on topics and things like that. So today I wanted to give a little bit of an update on where we're at, and then certainly myself, Eric, and Derek will be presenting different types of areas where we want to get some feedback.
That's it.
For me, today, and around like part of the city council presentation tonight, presentation at MPO, a lot of different committees, our COIC board is just kind of giving us a status update at the end of the year, where we are, and then what our priorities for 2025 are. And so that's kind of the topic for today. Next slide, please. Thank you. So, just some of the bigger things that are going, hopefully you've all been over to Hawthorne, and we're actually paving the final parking lot area today, in fact. That, are hopefully it's 99% wrapped up by Monday of next week. We'll certainly have some electrical wiring and cameras and lighting and things like that, but hopefully it's operational next week, where we're using the front and back, all sidewalks are complete, those type of things. So pretty exciting to have that done. A lot of discussion around the mobility hubs, whether it's from the Bend TSP, the Ben's Go Bond has about $8 million dedicated to mobility hubs within the city of Bend. We're working towards 2 right now. I think I mentioned this a little bit in last time, but what I've been trying to do is be really clear on the different type of mobility hubs. If you search or Google mobility hubs, you'll get about 100 different definitions and ranges, and we're really focusing on two different types of mobility hubs in Bend. The Troy Field is an example. This is the downtown lot where yes, it'll operate as a nicer bus stop off the road, but it's really. The priority for it is the city of Bend. They can help control downtown parking. They should relate their parking fees to it. Their e-bike program will be there. And so for us, I don't mean to diminish it, but it's really just a fancier bus stop, right? Certainly, we want to connect to those areas. We want to serve downtown, but we already have 4 stops downtown. This isn't going to be a 9-day change for us, but if the city partners with the e-bike program and adjusting parking, then certainly transit will be a priority. And then we have the Bend North Corridor Hub, which is the piece of property that we're in the process of acquiring from ODOT that's in front of the Lowe's up there on the north end, right adjacent to Cooley, where Kiewit has all its equipment parked right now. It's about 3.5 acres. Our intent is to purchase that. And it'll probably have office space there. It'll operate as a transit hub similar to Hawthorne, where we run different buses in and out of it, not just a bus stop, but we'll cycle people in there. It'll probably be the bus stop that serves Redmond North versus those buses coming all the way to Hawthorne and things like that. So certainly we want e-bike connections, bike racks, other mode shift alternatives there, but that'll be at our discretion, and we'll be paying for the maintenance and working those issues with the city. Where on Troy Field, that'll be more of a city-led project. And so similar, we're going to be looking at opportunities on the south end of Bend, maybe the west side as well, that may operate like the Bend North Corridor one, but the city probably will have 10 different that operate like the Troy Field, more of a micro mobility hub. And so I only talk about these two because they're on the horizon. 2025 construction for Troy Field, we're meeting with the city. We have what I would say are around 50% plans, because there's a lot of things that were just assumed that as we got in the weeds more, and certainly with me here having a different look at those, we're revising those, but our plan is still to have construction sometime by summer of 2025. And it's not a lot of construction. We're talking about parking lot, maybe a charging station, kiosks, bike racks, coverage shelters, those type of things. The Bend North Corridor is just going to take a while. We're in the process now, but it's probably a year-long process just for us to acquire it based on the ODOT acquisition process. Another big project for us is the bus stop improvement project, and this is in line with our over $300,000 we received from the Bend MPO a couple years ago towards improving bus stops. This is new signage, benches, shelters, etc. And so we made our first significant purchase of items last week, and when they're in here, it'll just be a constant. You won't be like, hey, the week of March 1st, we're out there doing it. It'll be like, hey, when stuff comes in mid-January, we'll get some of it done, and then we'll just keep going on through the spring until all the new items are up. So that's pretty exciting to get some movement on that, because certainly, the condition of bus stops certainly is representative of how many people want to use the bus. Internal CET updates, just for a broader sense, bus driver recruitment has been a struggle the last few years, especially during COVID. We have more drivers now than we ever had. We're still on a continuous driver recruitment. So we're not to the end yet. We still can use more bus drivers, but we're in a very good place where we can add services next spring confidently. Now, a lot can happen between now and then, but that's good news for us, right? You don't want to be limited by the number of bus drivers. We have buses, we have some funding for some additional routes, but we don't have enough bus drivers. And so our intent is by next spring that we'll be able to add some additional routes, and we'll talk about those later. Also, from an internal perspective, the COIC has budgeted some additional positions within the CET for the last couple of years, but just with some change in leadership with me and some other things going on, the time wasn't right just to fill those until we work through some issues. But the time is right now. Our first significant hire is going to be a fleet and facilities manager, which we should have an announcement out next week. Moving on to other positions like a safety manager, we don't have an identified safety rep for an entity that has approximately 100 employees, counting contract employees. So some of those getting some of those positions recruited and filled is a very big step for us, not just from a work product, but from a culture standpoint and making sure CET is an optimum place to work. So those are exciting, and there's going to be a few more of those over the next few months too, that will be expanding our personnel to help us get to the next level. Any questions on those specific projects before I?
Go ahead, Brian.
I just have a quick question about the bus driver hiring. Is there a timeline to increase that effort to bring in more bus drivers, and where are you at right now as far as how many you have versus how many you need?
So a couple things, you know, in the background right now, our union contract expires December 31st. So we're in bargaining for our new union contract, which includes bus drivers, dispatchers, mechanics, and so on. And so certainly some of the negotiations from a wage perspective, from a benefits perspective, will adjust how we recruit. And so we're still recruiting, but we're recruiting based on how we've always done it. There's bound to be some adjustments without getting into too many details on that. So we're hoping after the first of the year, we're going to expand our recruitment even further. To talk about how many drivers we have now to how many we need is an open-ended question. And I'll talk about that a little bit later, because, you know, we have Bachelor, we have Ride the River, we have Lava Butte that are 100% fare recovery. There's a couple other routes like that probably could be 100% fare recovery as well, like an airport shuttle or something like that. Well, as if I had the bus drivers, those don't cost us anything because we're passing those along to the users. So we could theoretically add 5 of those tomorrow, you know, and use them. As far as other services, there's still a balance. We'll know more after the legislative session next year around any increases to the transit payroll tax. But for now, we're, you know, from where I want to be in some of the growth opportunities, we're probably, you know, 5 to 10 full-time drivers short. Now we're covering all our services now, but we want to expand some, and we want to make sure we have those. The other thing is we have extras now. It's just we have a high daily vacancy rate still, and you know, those things there's a lot of things that contribute to that. But you know, if that vacancy rate drops, then we probably have enough bus drivers too. And so there's other ways between, you know, pay and culture and things like that hopefully we can affect that.
I'm sorry, when you say vacancy, you mean no show?
Not no show. I mean, they could be legitimate sick vacation times, but our rate is higher than the industry standards probably for similar.
Bob, I have a question.
Yeah.
So I have talked to several bus drivers riding routes, and I think that maybe one of the challenges of finding drivers is the wages, and I would advocate in favor of $30 an hour pay wage. Because, you know, most CDL drivers that are working for Republic Garbage Services and others are getting really large amounts. So I think if we pay them more, I think we'll have an opportunity to lower those vacancies, in my opinion.
Yeah, certainly wages are a combination. You know, we are very comparable to Knife River, Ben Lapine school districts, yet our benefits are greater than theirs from a financial standpoint. So hourly wage is still important to people regardless of what benefits behind the system. So that's part of the negotiations now. We're doing some more market analysis to make sure that we're a preferred wage above, not just competing with, but potentially above some of our competitors.
Okay, cool.
It's like Denise has her hand raised.
Denise?
Thanks for some of your updates here. So from a context perspective, the mobility hub effort, if I recall, it's been a while, is probably a multi-year process as you find and build out these mobility hubs. So for 2025, are we still looking at hub and spoke as the primary model in Bend? Because these first ones might not even be up and finished, or will we start to see you guys accommodate and shift routes based on a mobility hub versus everybody coming back to Hawthorne?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough question to give a direct answer. I apologize for working around it. Certainly for 2025, these are the only two, you know, it's a longer term thing. The city and some of their developments on the different areas of Bend as it relates to their urban growth boundary and development. Certainly, some of those may be triggered sooner than later. One of the areas we were looking at was on the slate was the south end of Bend, and we had identified some property, but it was $1.5 million or $2 million, which is the going rate. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It was within market standards, but us spending $2 million on a hub to potentially help other areas versus us working with Walmart and using the back parking lot and some other partnership is probably not the right thing to do. So we're not pausing, because certainly the city's TSP, our long range plans talk about hubs, but it's really this priority. And then to your question, you're right about Hawthorne. There's been this long-term talk about, well, don't have a center, area like Hawthorne that everything comes to. And certainly there's a hub and spoke model that will work. The reality, though, is in our situation where we're a community connector too, it does make sense to have one single spot where they come into town versus I stop at the North Hub, then I get on a bus and I travel to Hawthorne, then I get on another bus and I travel to the South Hub, and then I get on another bus and travel to Deschutes River Woods. So I think there's this, let's reanalyze. We're not going away from the hub system. We're probably not going away from Hawthorne for a while either. And what kind of works based on what is available. The north end of Bend is available, the property there, which is the best spot we could hope for. Troy Field is available. There's going to be some other public-private partnership discussions we have with other areas. And then once we kind of identify those areas, then instead of, hey, these are the route systems we want, and we want this specific property that may be too much, we may look at it as like, hey, here's a good partner. What if we just adjusted our route slightly? That one's more economical than another one. And so that's probably the reality over the next year of what analysis we're going to do.
Cool. That's very, very helpful. And then my follow-on question, and I also sit on TBOC, and so I'm curious of since there is money sitting there, it's been a while since anyone from CET's come in to talk about priorities for where you might want to be bridging from that fund source. So just curious if that's also going to be on the plate for 25, trying to.
Yeah, certainly that's.
What is it, Bob, that she's talking about?
Or TBOC, I'm terrible on acronyms.
Transportation Bond Oversight Committee for City of Bend.
Yeah.
So the GO bond has money for CET in it. And so he mentioned that up there for some of the potential.
Yeah, TBOC stands for Transportation Bond Oversight Committee, and there's $8 million in the GO bond for mobility hubs. And so one of our discussions is, what is that 8 million used for? Was that CT for the hubs, or the definition is broad like most of the GO bond? But tonight at the city council work session, we're assuming council members will give us some backdrop to what their expectations are on that, and then we'll be presenting those forward at TBOC to get consensus and move forward.
Okay, great. Sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Where's the North Hub property?
It's on the corner of Cooley and Old 97, right in front of Lowe's.
Oh, okay.
I have a quick question on that North Hub. So when that's complete, will the inner city buses like the Bend to Redmond, will that be their designated drop-off spot, and then local Bend buses can then pick them up from that mobility hub to go to their next destination? Or is that going to be like the fast lane to get from Bend to Redmond?
Potentially, I mean, there's gonna need to be a lot of analysis done. How many buses do we have? An optimum situation would be, there's buses that just go between that hub and the Redmond hub and don't make any other stops. So people can count on, it takes me 21 minutes to get from Bend to Redmond, not, well, if the bus is full and people keep pulling the chain, I'm getting off. But there's also some, flexibility in that, hey, it probably makes sense to have buses go through there to Hawthorne too. So it'll be a combination of the.
Because I foresee the vision that in the future, it could expand on rapid transit hours, having those mobility hubs closer to less congested areas. So you're right next to the highway. It's you don't have to make any stops. It's into Redmond. So I think that's a really good.
Part of it relates to is if we're at limited funding and we can't get to quicker service like every 20 minutes instead of 45 that we're at, then some of having Hawthorne in one central area where you don't have to take 4 buses may be still a benefit. So there's a lot of decisions to be made around that, but an optimum goal would be to, use the north and south hub as the primary community connector spots, and then have different routes internal to the city that don't necessarily have to go through a central point.
Makes sense.
Why wouldn't there be a bus that came from Redmond? And maybe its first stop once it left Redmond would be the mobility hub, but then continue south on either 3rd or 90th. So we have express style buses, which, to get to the south end of town, because I don't know why it's so damn hard to get from the north end of Bend to the south end of Bend, but it is.
No, I think that's.
Something to do with traffic, I
Yeah,
think.
it's like, if more people rode the bus, it wouldn't take as long.
Yeah.
But.
Well, how do we get that done, Bob? That's
No,
the point.
I think that's this combination of
Yeah.
and I don't mean to diminish us, our bus route system is pretty simplified, right? The one bus does the same route all day, things like that. There's going to be advantages, and we'll talk about it with expansion a little bit, that sometimes there may be the benefit to having a third street route that only makes 2 stops, so you can get from one end to the other, right? Versus, hey, this one's gonna, and so time is predictable and things like that. And the same way with Bend to Redmond, some may just go to the hubs, some may come on to Hawthorne, but those take additional drivers, additional buses, additional funding.
Cause having the Bend to Redmond bus going to that new north 4-door hub will help eliminate time, travel and traffic congestion for the buses getting to point A to point B.
Yeah.
They'll have to go through the parkway and through the lights and all the other traffic congestion through there, so.
Yeah, and with the automated systems, your app, or even the signage on the bus, we can have 2 buses making the same route, and one stops at different places and others doesn't, that's a common thing with transit.
We had one more question over here.
Oh,
Back on recruitments, Bob, you
Yes.
mentioned recruitments for someone in the area of safety. Wondering if there's been any thought around expounding on that safety and security for us, or is that?
yeah, so we have, the way we have the safety, the way we have the position subscription is the safety manager is gonna do, because they're not gonna supervise people, it's gonna have some security responsibility from what our policies are. The fleet and facilities manager is gonna manage security now, this new position that we're hiring this week. So yeah, we're capturing it in a couple different ways, just from union type of rules, but certainly they're interchangeable as far as safety and security here. And we've been getting a lot of discussion around, safety, having more security officers, which is one tool, but also having other, physical barriers on the bus, having other, additional cameras, additional de-escalation training there, it's a pretty broad spectrum that can affect safety.
Sure. Good, thanks.
So we'll start forward thinking stuff now. I did want to just give a quick update. So certainly we have stiff formula funds, which is the payroll tax from, House Bill 2017. But we're very aggressive in getting grants and applying for grants. We have another 3 we're submitting this Friday as well, and it's just a continuous thing that we're looking for discretionary funds. And not to get into too many details about these, but I just wanted to show you a range of almost $4 million here, or a little more than 4 million on this one, I think what I added. Of grants that we've been successful on, or discretionary funding. The stiff discretionary funding is available for anyone in the state, so there's a lot of applicants, but we did very well on this identification. We have our 1.6 million in FLAP awards, or Federal Lands Access Program, that we have for new buses, as well as these federal 5339. These are just a few. We have a lot more, some of them are $35,000 grants and stuff, but I did want to show, certainly we're reliant on the City of Bend's contributions, fares, our stiff formula funds, that's a percentage of the payroll tax that's generated within the county that we reside in. But we're also very aggressive, and the staff has done very well in getting additional grants. So 2025 initiatives, and I'm just going to talk broadly about all these and only cover a couple in specific, and then Eric will cover the rest. One of our, and these are in order 1 through 6, at least in the way they have to go. That doesn't mean we're not working on 6 now as we start working on 1, but we need to check down the list too for implementation. Items 7 and 8 are just ongoing things that really aren't affected by the others, but data-driven service optimization, you can imagine how many times we get requests for new routes and things like that, which I wish we could get them all. The reality is at some point, we're gonna hit our limit based on bus drivers or buses available and funding. And so the only way to, make decisions about what buses need to serve where and what our routes are is by using data. For the most part. Now, there's other things to consider from an equity standpoint, serving an underserved area that doesn't have services, even if the ridership may be less than another area. I don't mean to diminish that, but data is very important because we're going to come to a point, and we'll certainly use this committee for some of that, where, hey, we can only afford 30 routes. And someone wants to add a couple that we think will be beneficial. The only way to add them is to cancel another route that we've been serving. And so certainly we're going to have recommendations on that based on data, but we're going to use groups like you and others to make those. And so Eric will be sharing some of the, we have a lot of data, right? We know how many people get on every stop, by hour, and so Eric will show some of that later here, just as this is very important to us. We want to have, and we certainly want to have this up on our website sooner than later. But the nice thing now is we're probably a month away from someone saying, I want to see this data on Route 3, for example, and we'll be able to share that. How much people use it every day? Is the morning busier than the afternoon? Is Tuesday busier than Thursday, right? All those types of things. How does it compare to other routes? And so very important for us to get a handle on that, so that we can make some of these decisions. Extended service hours for Ben fixed route, our intent, and if you put me to timing on this, I don't want to be so absolute by like April 1st, because we have union notifications when we change schedules and things like that. But our goal is to extend service hours sometime next year before July is a safe thing. And I'm just gonna go down the list on dates and then I'll go back. Rider cards, transit passes, we're hoping to implement, as soon as we extend hours.
What does that mean?
The rider cards, transit passes. Eric's gonna go through that later, but generally it means just like at TriMet or other places, to ride the bus, you have to have a identification card where you can pay through it. There's a
So is
lot.
that like,
Kind of what they did before.
how would, like a plastic card, like most places where you load it up and you have a balance on it?
Yeah, or
apps on
app
it?
as well, right? I mean,
Okay.
it's, I'll let Eric talk about that a little bit more, but as far as timing, we want to extend service hours because we don't think we should be charging fares for people in Bend if we can't serve people going to work. Like I can't get to work until 9 o'clock. That's not reasonable, right? We need to get back to starting in the 6 o'clock hour so we can get people to work by 8 or 7:30 that need to. And so that's why that's the most important. And then along with that, we
So
can't.
I'm sorry, so the rider cards and transit passes are for after we extend hours?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it takes a bit to hand out cards to get them programmed, even though there's not gonna be any fares. So, I like.
Hang on, just thinking, if there's no fare, what is the advantage of having a card?
So
It's getting ready for fairs.
it's getting ready for fairs, but all this. And this is, for me, this is like the deal breaker on how important transit cards are. And the one thing, as I started at CT, with my experience at ODOT, I have a high understanding of transit and benefits and working through a lot of the daily operational things similar to operations we had at ODOT. One thing I had no clue on was our exclusion lists, and some of you may have heard of this before, but I assumed exclusion lists for people who shouldn't ride the bus was like the DMV. We have 2 or 3 pictures up on the wall, don't let them come in. The exclusion list for CET is a notebook of about 300 people at any given time, right? And there's no way a bus driver, and we've had a couple incidences where someone should not have rode the bus, then assaulted someone, right? And so the biggest priority, certainly getting fares at some point, because it means we can extend our services, but it's security for the riders and the passengers that, hey, you no longer have access. It's, and it's not going to be an encumbrance. People worry about it. about like, oh, how's someone gonna, we're still gonna give cards to Shepherd's House or other things. They'll have 10 cards for rides, right? So they can give it out as needed. We'll go out to Warm Springs on several days and make sure anybody who wants a card is signed up the first time. You know, we know that that's our burden if we go to the system, but at the same time, this 100% has to happen regardless of fares or not. Right, we have to make sure it is safe for our drivers, safe for the passengers and the people who are not getting on the bus that should not be getting on it. And we don't have a way to control that right now without being very punitive and say, oh, you look like,
Right.
you know.
Well, and I just want to make this quick, but I have a buddy of mine who drives buses in Seattle. And they have the tap fare
Yeah.
plastic card system. And on their computer, they can see if you tap and you're red flagged in the system, they can tell you can't get on. They can see everything from how much money they're generating from ticket sales to any kind of other statistic data.
Yeah, I mean, there's a
all in the
lot of,
computer, so.
there's a lot of overarching benefits,
Yeah.
but on the top of the list, I mean, just, you know, from tracking data, like, you know, we're collecting a lot of data now, but the bus driver has to enter a lot of it on the tablet too, versus when you have a tab.
Right,
You know, and so there's some privacy issues to work through, but
right,
there's a significant benefit to having these type of systems
I agree.
for
I
us.
agree.
So, I mean, is there also very clear guidelines for who is on this, who's on the exclusion list?
Yeah,
Because
we have policies on it.
who implements the policy? I'm sorry, we're like dancing on the edge of something that gets our sued, that's why I'm asking.
So if you violate our rules that are posted on the bus or something, then you can be excluded. If you have alcohol on the bus, we have different levels of exclusion. You can have 30-day exclusion or lifetime, you know, physical violence, threat of physical violence is a lifetime ban. Our attorney, you know, has reviewed the process with us. We definitely follow it, except for the part of you shouldn't be on the bus today because you look like Johnny, but I'm not sure and I don't want to question it, type of thing. But certainly this is a heavy training area for us to talk about what is an exclusion and what's not.
We can bring it back out.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it'd be a good idea.
For conversation.
Yeah, I'm happy to provide. I mean, this happens every day. At the end of the week, we have an exclusion report that's generated from the week. I think last week was the first weeks in my 4 months that I've been here that we actually didn't have one, which was somewhat related to, we've added a security officer on a route that has caused us trouble to going down the list. So then service area expansion, like I said, we're analyzing where we're at bus driver wise. We certainly have a few areas that we want to expand service in, and service area expansion can be time related. It can be an express route. It can be things like that. But certainly that's a topic. New approach to outreach and engagement. This is, you know, back to that data driven service optimization. If we don't have a route, if we have a route that doesn't have very many riders, we're not gonna just cancel that because it has low riders. We're gonna have to go out there and like, did we reach out to businesses? Did we do other outreach to ensure that everybody knew that the bus was available on that route before we're like, okay, boy, you guys did everything you could. You were at the senior center giving out free passes for them to use and we still don't have anything. It's okay. So we understand that. There's also this, you know, a lot of times we spend engagement just at fairs and things like that. One of the other positions we are hiring is within the programming office, community affairs and operations assistant that will help us go door to door, do training, how to ride the bus, things like that. The other area is we certainly have people who ride the bus because they don't want to sit in traffic. They ride the bus because it's cheaper and things like that. In Bend, we have a very high rate of people who are mode shift type of, we should ride the bike, you know, we should walk places. Well, transit is right up there too. So how do we capture some of the people who talk a lot about improving transportation, but we just don't see on the bus yet? So we'll certainly, over the next year, our outreach and engagement model will expand all of those areas, really trying to grow ridership. Reviewing, implementing fair policies, like I said, we're gonna move we have fares now on, you know, Ride the River, or our rec routes and stuff. So to say we're implementing fares again is not completely true, but we're re-implementing where we had fares before. And so that's gonna be a policy outreach type of process. There is some legal requirements to public notice periods and things on that. And then certainly our CYC board has final adoption of what those fare policies are. And then at the meantime here, we're working on an updated mission statement and refreshing our CET branding. So, or go back one. So just a couple areas, the other areas that our numbers on there, Eric's gonna cover a little bit, but I just wanted to show like people, why is a mission statement important? And I don't want to date Bob for being my boss before about mission statements, and sometimes I may have been critical at him. But our mission statement of always exceed expectations of riders is a very loose and broad. If people's expectations are very low of us, we can check that box versus having a more meaningful mission. And mission statements aren't everything, but we deal with a lot of different things. Do we want to prioritize rec routes? Do we want to prioritize city event? Low income areas, right? Having a mission statement on what we're really trying to serve here, especially with the community connectors, is valuable for me and my staff so that, hey, we can repeat it. We know what we're working for when a decision comes up. Certainly we want to have people weigh in, but it helps us guide where we think we should be and what's most important to us, right? Is it connecting people to services, healthcare, right? That, you know, having this updated employment would mean like, oh yeah, we have to expand hours then because we're not getting people to employment and things like that. So not the most important thing, but something that we can work on the side, and certainly I'll be providing, you know, examples back here as a group to really weigh in on that. Next one. And then the other big thing for us, if anybody can tell me how the item on the left relates to transit, I would really appreciate it, but it doesn't. And not only that is, you can see how many colors on that. It's the most expensive type of thing to get embroidered or whatever, because it has like 12 different shades of things. So certainly not just a reason to go away from it, because there's a cost when you change your branding, but certainly Cascades East Transit probably should have the Cascades in it. This is engineering. This is not what we're going to by any means. I took flip art, right? I'm not in love with the lowercase letters anymore, but certainly something that reflects the Cascades, has a bus in it or something, will be valuable. We have the new gray buses. All our new buses will be gray. Yes, there'll be a cost to change the branding, but we're not going to go out there tomorrow and change out old buses. We'll probably just phase them out when we have the new logo, and unless we can do it cost effectively. But moving forward, it'll be nice to have new branding with everything. And with that being said, our next slide, Eric. So
We're gonna have to get new name tags.
Yeah, new name tags, new everything.
That logo you showed, that's not official, that's still just it's
No,
mock-up.
that's not even a concept. That's just trying to say like, we want a logo with the
Something that looks
Cascades or
similar.
something.
Okay.
And so back to my initial statement about, you know, what the purpose of this group is. I do want the only idea for the logo, we have some other past work on logo, but we're just gonna start fresh, is the example mission statement that I took from TriMet and Salem, and I just made, you know, an example. And then the logo is, I just flip arted and added CET to. So today, and it doesn't have to be anything, if you want to shoot me a note, but I do want to get a little bit of feedback, because my intent is at our next meeting is we have a couple mission statement ideas for you to review and say, hey, I like this one better than that one, but we'd like a couple more changes. And, you know, by June, we have our mission statement done and we take it to our board. Likewise with the logo, you can imagine everybody wants to weigh in on the logo, but the more people we have weigh in, the better. And so, and if you don't have feedback, that's fine, but I definitely want to make sure this group has first dibs on getting feedback on either of the two. And so any comments or thoughts on the mission statement, or you're like, hey, mission statements don't matter, I don't think you should spend time on it, it's all relevant. And or any logo ideas. Since I brought this up at our CIC board meeting, a lot of people have sent me little clip art things of things that might work, which is fine. It's great to get a start because I'm an engineer and not very creative.
Well, I was gonna say, I
Oh,
do graphic design on the side. I could kind of play around and send you a couple.
Yeah,
Ideas.
we're happy to have those. And what I envision, and Denise has her hand up, but is we have like 100 different examples, and we're not picking one from that 100, but we're getting, okay,
Yeah,
we want to get down to 10 general ideas. We like it to be black and white, or we like it to have one mountain versus multiple, those type of things.
okay.
Denise?
Bob, I'm 100% behind you on a new mission statement. That old one wasn't terribly useful in today's world. So I'm happy to be part of helping here. I also would suggest considering in the logo work, the possibility of leaving something small like the iconography you have now. I 100% agree with all your color problems. Be good to streamline that. But you could also come up with a tagline that sort of says something about transit so that you don't have to do it visually. Because once you introduce visual elements like a bus, it's going to get difficult to make this thing small and legible. So just a thought that you could stick with what you have, but get rid of all those colors and then have something like, transit for Central Oregon. I mean, that's not it, but something like that, that just is quick and then you're done, and it's not going to take up much space for all the ways in which you might be using it. So anyway, some initial ideas.
No, I appreciate that. That's good feedback.
Just quickly on logo and mission statement and providing feedback like that, you don't have to be a super creative person and do the work yourself and then give us a concept sketch or anything like that. But if you're familiar with other agencies, whether it's Pepsi or TriMet or whatever, point to other things that you like and tell us what you like about them. And that way we can figure out like what elements work, what kind of things speak to you, and we can build off of that. So it doesn't have to be a sketch from scratch or anything like that. A little bit of feedback helps.
A question, is there a way with the mission statement to send out the ideas ahead of time to the group? So
Yeah.
they'll get them before the meeting?
Yeah.
That'd be excellent.
Yeah, and I guess just to get a little deeper on that, are people comfortable with a mission statement that kind of ranks our priorities? Because one of the things that's important to me, and I brought it up before, and I'm operating under that way, and I think everybody feels the same, that rec routes are important because it serves people, but they're not as important as serving employment, medical, and things like that. What are people's thoughts about not ranking them, but listing them in like an order, or would you rather just be silent on that and we'll deal with it after?
Jessica?
I think when you have a mission statement, I think finding a way to remain generic is important, so that as your mission grows and evolves, you're not constantly reinventing the wheel in terms of a mission statement. So including things like being a scalable agency or a scalable organization that meets diverse and growing needs for the region encompasses whatever you want to do in the future and anything that we're doing right now without drilling down on specific points.
Thanks, Jessica.
Thanks, Jesse.
I think your idea of listing what's necessary travel versus enjoyable travel is kind of how I interpret it. Like, it seems like the enjoyable travel pays for itself, like the rec routes pays for itself, so.
Yeah, right now, I think there's gonna be this discussion coming up as we renegotiate with Bachelor and others, that
Yeah.
they'll want us to have more skin in the game. And right now, we're kind of saying no, because we're not gonna take away from our services.
They don't have enough parking as it is.
Yeah, and so, but what's that decision? And I'm fine either way. There's value to broad mission statements, but then they don't mean a lot sometimes unless you add values down below or something like that, so that you can have and we can certainly do that. We can have a broad mission statement, and then internally we can have our, values that we do for our employees. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but I think the one thing for me is, I say that's our mission statements, it's included in our website and the first paragraph in our 2040 plan, but it's technically not an official mission statement. It's just what is included, and that's why it's important to me to at least do something.
So will this be brought up again at the February meeting?
Yeah,
So then between now and then, folks should send you their thoughts.
yeah,
on it?
sending me ideas. My thing is, I hope to have like 10. If I have to come up with all 10 internally, we'll do that, and they'll start from somewhere, but I wanna get a few out there, be like, I don't like that one, or I like that one, but I want it changed, and just to move forward. I don't wanna make it more than it is, but it's certainly important for us to have something that we can hang our hats on.
Well, if there are any more comments, or if you need to wrap up anything else, keep on time for the meeting today. Are you finished? I don't want.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Okay, great. We've got Derek's not here. I'm not sure who's taking over the service improvements and under consideration. Did they get that be Eric?
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to Eric.
Thank you. Yeah, and just quickly on time, we did extend time to 3:30 today. So normally we've been ending at 3 o'clock. But if you need to catch that Redmond bus or anything like that, just
I'm gonna take the 450.
excellent.
Good job, Trevor.
All right, so we've got a few different points here. Bob alluded to, and some of this will be familiar terrain for community members, but let's get into it. Service hours, this is something we spoke about before that we've heard a lot of demand from the public in the city of Bend about extended service hours. This is something that we're connecting to our ability to institute fairs. You know, we want to deliver value if we're going to ask for your money, right? Part of that is serving transit when you need it. You know, City of Bend had its big street fair down on 9th Street a couple months back in fall. And there's the Double Brewing place nearby where a lot of the events were. You couldn't grab a drink there, could you? Because our last bus leaves Hawthorne at 5:15. So recognizing a lot of the feedback is of that nature, and that we did have extended hours prior to the pandemic when we had more driver capacity. That's something that we're aiming to do in this next year. What that looks like exactly, that's the discussion to be held. What we have on the screen here is what the pre-COVID hours were, 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's Hawthorne Station departure times. So that last bus leaves Hawthorne at 7 and circulates for as long as it takes to get back. We're also looking at rural side of things, Saturday schedules. Now, part of the discussions around hours, again, it's not going to be fixed, you know, this time to that time. It could be variable based on route. So those high priority corridors like 3rd Street and Bend, maybe that's where we'll start with extended hours, and then other lower ridership routes we'll catch up later as we have capacity. We could also look at peak service frequencies too. So maybe it doesn't make sense to have consistent frequency throughout the day when folks aren't riding as much, but we'll still have a bus serving in those added hours, and we'll have that high frequency during commuting times. So there's different ways that we can configure this. So it's a discussion to be had. We'll come back to you as this all takes shape, but we are getting closer to reality with this. Expansion routes. If you've seen our 2040 Transit Master Plan that was approved in 2020, there's quite a bit packed in there. Some of that is showing aspirational routes and others that are more discreetly planned. Route 8, we did supplemental plans. That's the northeast route in the city of Bend. Route 9 was planned at the same time. That's the southeast Bend one, and that came into reality in 2023. Ridership is increasing there. It's starting to mature into a healthy route. And Route 8 in the northeast, well, we talked about it being launched this past summer, potentially, right? But we had the North Quarter project happening. So lots and lots of major disruptions. There's the big polished master plan community happening up on the far northeast of town. So once some of the dust settles in this area, we'll reevaluate and see what we can pull off there. We have done quite a bit of planning already, but the actual route may vary from that previous planning cycle. These will be discussions we have with committee and members of the public. Routes C and D in Redmond. So this past June, we launched routes A and B, the flex routes. Flex routes allow you to have on-demand deviated pickups. within a quarter mile of the route, so it differs from the fixed routes that you see in Bend. And this is something that goes back to the 2009 TSP in the city of Redmond, where they asked for this service. We did a follow-on study. It was baked into our transit master plan to add these routes, and it gave us a phased approach to doing this. But one of those big grants that Bob mentioned earlier was to obtain new vehicles for Redmond to provide the service. So we expect that award. It's not finalized, but they did, it was ranked number 2 in the state among those discretionary awards. So there is support there for that. Again, it's conversations to be had on how and when that materializes, but it is on our roadmap. Then to Redmond Airport bus. This is one of those ones that we always hear about, probably the most frequently asked for thing. This is something that we want to pursue. Like Bob said, it can be a revenue generator. It will be at cost, as this is, you know, something that's a little unique from typical public transit. And the distance involves, you know, it has unique costs associated with it. So again, much to figure out there, but it is on our roadmap. Then up in Warm Springs, there's the Canita and Sinasho areas that we've had requests for transit serving these areas. There's federal grant opportunities that we'll be pursuing in the new year that might support that. Now, you know, the nature of grant funding, we'll have to see if it comes through, but this does seem very likely. So we're hopeful that we can implement something along these lines.
So this would be an internal route? Sure.
This will be a circulator from Warm Springs.
Sure.
Yeah. Service changes, so these aren't as radical as the new routes, but things that we're looking at expanding potentially to Shoes River Woods. You know, there's a strong equity component to that, looking at the characteristics of who lives there, but there's also difficulty of large lot residential areas and winding roads. How do you access that with meaningful frequency? So we're looking at what we can do there. If mobility hubs materialize, that might help us slingshot into that area and connect to the rest of the Bend system. Or we can look at different mobility modes. But it's something that is under active exploration. And we do want to improve the connectivity there. Route 26, Prineville, there's been a lot of building out that way. ODOT's been improving the main drag through Prineville. There's new communities coming up on the fringes, so we want to expand what we do there. There's already been discussions about new stops, so how do we reconfigure things to better serve that entire community? We'll be eyeing the developments in that area and then see how we can respond and improve there. Then low ridership areas, this is where there might be some trimming. That we don't necessarily want to remove services entirely, but for example, the Crooked River Ranch shuttle has been 5 days a week scheduled. We reduce that down to 2 days a week. So the idea here is how do we maintain access to communities that need it, whether that's for your medical services, shopping, or whatever. How do we make something that fits and is sustainable? Because we really don't want to pull things entirely. If we can find a different creative solution that works, that provides service. For example, Sisters Shopper Shuttle is something that you call ahead and request. And if no one does that, it doesn't run. So, yeah. We'll be taking a look at the things like that and seeing how we can make them fit a little bit better.
Question, Eric.
Yeah.
A lot of things in the works. What process would you use, and would this group be able to participate in that process for fleshing out some of those things that you've discussed as proposals?
Yeah, for some of these, they might involve consultant work. For example, we're looking at one of the grants we're submitting this week is for serving disadvantaged communities better. So we'll have some expert consultative work done. We'll also be doing quite a bit in-house. Bob's restructured things a little bit and We have a route planning committee where we seek feedback from all parts of our agency, including drivers. So there'll be different touch points along the way that originates in-house and then goes to that public comment phase, which will involve this committee.
The goal will generally be those are on our list because they're master plans or other things, but it's to get as many as we can on the list, start grouping them from priority. Certainly the city of Bend tonight is going to talk about the Northeast Bend being a priority. And so, but our hope is we can, we're going to have outreach models on each one of them. So we can get out there and talk about what type of ridership numbers we would have. So we could get some basis of numbers and then bring that to this group and, I'm not a final decision, but like, hey, yeah, we were ranking, here's the ones that we want to add sooner than later. And certainly the Bend, as I said about the airport route, these routes are 100% recovery, and we say 100% recovery. They're not true. I mean, it's hard to get all your admin costs to them, but they're paying for the driver, they're paying for the fuel, definitely some of the major stuff. But technically, the more of those we can have, the more we can spread our bus costs out, the more we spread our maintenance, my admin costs. And so by having a Redmond airport route that pays for itself, and then some of Eric's time, some of our other HR times things, that maybe we can even though it may be lower on the list, it may help us get to another extra route. And so it's going to be a little bit confusing on just, well, that's not a higher priority than serving the Chutes River Woods. Maybe not, but if we do that route, maybe we can serve the Chutes River Woods and Prineville or something. And so certainly we want, those are one, and I don't mean to take a cowardly way out of just like, oh, we don't want to make those decisions. We want to get as much input as possible. So we're going, because some of them are going to be very hard decisions. And who picked Prineville over Sun River or the Pine expansion, right? It's going to be like, well, this is the information we have. These are the benefits of both. And this was the recommendation and this is how we went. So we're certainly gonna, I don't mean to scare you guys about raising the burden of your volunteer time, but certainly there's gonna be tougher decisions than you've had in the past about recommendations.
Thanks.
All right, and then getting to the rider cards. Bob touched on this and there's a little bit of discussion earlier, but this provides a few bullet points overview. This is independent of fares. Most agencies that institute fares, you have a tap card system or a magnetic stripe or whatever, right? That's how you pay for your ride. This would be before we get to implementing fares. And it helps us gather data. I guess the closest example would be like college campuses, for example, where your student ID is what you tap on the bus. There's campuses that have circulator buses on campus, and that's how you get access to that. So for one, as Bob mentioned, it provides that safety element that we can then identify that you've been a troublemaker, and that helps the bus driver see that. It helps us gather more data on how the system is used. For example, when you look at our statistics, we look at boardings. That's when someone gets on the bus. And right now the driver has a tap on the tablet every time someone gets on the bus. If you got 12 kids, he's tapping, right? Every motion on that card is registered. Now our statistics are currently called unlinked passenger trips, because we don't know if you took a transfer authorization from the 1 to the 3. With a system like this, we can see that that same person went from Walmart to Target and made a transfer authorization. So we can get better data on how the system is being used and where people are going, where they're coming from, right? And then a relatively new development that we've seen at other agencies, for example, this is lane transit. One of the big conflicts that drivers often have is with service animals. We don't allow pets on, and you can imagine we have some unruly folks that don't enjoy etiquette with their animals. And for those who really need their service animals, one of my best friends has epilepsy and encounters this a lot with his service animal. It's just the meeting is frustrating to have to answer that question over and over. So we can remove that barrier there and do a one-time verification. It's incorporated on your card. So it's called the PAW program in Lean Transit. And you can see that, yes, this is my bona fide service animal. Come on down. Awesome. Right. Likewise with affinity groups, when we have fair policies, there's always going to be discounted rates for senior students, veterans, and so on. This allows benefit programs like that. It allows, like for example, veterans status. We have a rural veterans healthcare transportation program. It's on the trust system right now. You say you're a veteran and let you in. Down at Klamath Falls, they have a system where they work with the county, they review your DD 214 and you get enrolled into the system. We can do something similar like that using these ID cards. So it grants you access to additional programs that would not be available to the general public. And then again, just prevents abuse on the system. So lots of different ways of approaching this. There are challenges in implementing it outside of a fair system. For us, we have to go through an RFP process. So that gives us the opportunity to refine our thinking on this, take feedback from folks like you, and look at available technologies, vendors, and so on, and see exactly what we want to ask for out of something like this. But there are quite a few options out there. Like Bob mentioned, there's the card systems. They all have an app that can accompany this now. So there's different ways of doing this. We'll still have the front desk at Hawthorne as a point of customer service and the call center to help folks through the experience. Tourists will come to town and we'll have to find out how to get the app downloaded to tap and get around. But these are all problems that we can solve.
It will be simpler than the parking apps and then.
So I got a quick comment.
Sorry, there was a hand
Oh,
raised.
sorry.
That's okay. It'll be a physical card, or there will also be an app available. Or.
There's typically a physical complement, yeah. That's common.
Could potentially be both.
Yeah.
Could be, yeah.
So if I'm traveling to Central Oregon as a visitor, will I be able to go to a self-serve kiosk and buy my pass and then tap the pass on the machine, load up my stored value and get right on the bus?
That may be an option. We'll have to see.
That's why the app is
I know
so
those
important. for
systems are
someone.
very expensive. But if you have an app that can do it too, that'll probably save money on kiosk machines as well.
Yeah, that's why the
Yeah,
app,
it's
and
under-
it, just as we're talking about there's this. We have to update policies around, there's this question around like, well, it's 5 degrees out and someone wants to get on the bus, we're gonna let them on the bus, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not absolute, we're gonna have to have some exception things, because we do that now, with people may not be at the right stop sometimes, but it's a life safety type of issue, so we'll have to tackle all those what ifs on that side too.
Okay.
Freddie's got his hand up.
It's okay, I'll vouch for it.
Ready?
Because you mentioned can you hear me okay, first of all?
Yeah.
Okay, because you mentioned better data tracking with using the cards, knowing which multiple buses people are taking so we can know how the service is being used. I just want to stress the importance of making sure that data is, and this is way down the line, I know, but making sure that data is anonymized and kept secure from third parties. Since I know a lot of systems get that kind of data and then find out or determine that it can be used for advertising purposes or something like that. So I just wanted to stress the importance of not doing that.
Yeah, and that is something we'd have to define in terms of our contract with any vendor, and I believe there are state regulations affecting that as well.
Jordan?
I just wanna know if there's any thought internally about putting more lighting at the bus stops so that passengers can be seen,
Yeah.
because I normally have to go to get off work in the old mill. There's really no lighting other than that little spot.
Yeah.
And then you have to go all around, and most of the time you don't see the person standing there because they're they're in dark clothes and they don't know
Yeah.
to hold the flashlight up.
That's part of what we're looking at with the bus stop improvement project, is we're better inventorying our bus stops and seeing which sites might be suitable for things like that, but that might be conversations with local governments as well.
Also, is there any talk about just going back to regular hours, like, like within the next 6 months?
We'll see, but yeah, I
Because-
think Bob said that we are aiming for before summer for better hours,
Because I'm
but it is
having to
involved.
get off work now.
Yeah.
At 5 o'clock in order to
Yeah.
jump, in order to catch that last bus.
Yeah, and this involves working with our drivers,
Yeah.
you know, the union folks and making sure things work for them as well, that we have capacity to deliver this and not have to take it back 3 months later, right? Yeah.
I've had some people in Redmond also mention that they would like to eventually see weekend service from Bend to Redmond. And especially possibly the flex route having a Saturday service. Cause there are a lot of people who still go out during the weekends.
Yep.
So like to explore that option in the future.
Yep, that's one of the items on our roadmap for consideration.
Perfect.
Great. Right. Picking up the computer. Route reports, oh Jesus, take a moment.
Just as we're pausing here, any beyond the routes we said, what are other high priority routes that people think for potential add-ons? Or to look at, right? I mean, as we, under this model where we investigate.
Well, I think Redmond's flex route could eventually have more stops. And I know that's been talked about already, so. The northwest route particularly is getting a high turnout rate at the moment. More people are starting to use the northwest route on the Redmond. So I think eventually adding 1 or 2 more stops up 19th Street and then, you know, possibly down there by Ridgeview High School. There's no bus service on the southwest side of Redmond, so possibly looking at that zoning area.
You mean for Route A?
Yes.
Yeah, because it does cut over at the Weimar and like we've got the
Right.
new affordable housing that's right behind the Weimar that we should be servicing.
And that route
And
particularly is a
continuing on
lot
down.
slower, it's had a lower
Yes, yeah.
rider rate. So I think if we could move that around that, some of those residential areas, we can pick up people from those areas of the community.
Great, and then Jessica's got her hand up. Jessica?
As much a route addition or considering a new route, but just, I'm wondering about, perhaps looking at some of the alignment between the local routes and the connector buses. So I have a kid that rides the 6, and then there's, you know, only a couple of minutes between getting into Hawthorne and then hopping on the connector bus, and that bus frequently runs 3, 4, 5, 10 minutes behind. So that means that he misses the connector bus and then he has to wait till the next connector bus and then he's missed his first classes in Redmond. So I'm curious, what the evaluation process looks like, for aligning the local routes with the connectors.
No, that's a good point. That's one of the things we, as Eric mentioned, our bus route timing committee, there's a lot of those gaps we have, or that the time is within a minute, which isn't reasonable with congestion and bend and things like that. So we're certainly, I'll add that one to the list, and then we're certainly looking at all those. I mean, you don't want to provide so much a buffer and then people don't want to use the service because they got to wait another 20 minutes, but certainly we want to be better.
Right.
I have one more thing about the Redmond hub. There's that big display right in the center. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I know that's been changed and the big giant poster boards have been removed, but is there a way to put a QR code on there where people can scan that on their phone and then pull up the real-time bus routes as they you know, if they update, you know,
Yeah.
every once in a while.
We're looking at improving the
Okay.
signage there. We have the schedules all in the bus shelters right now. with the best information, but we are looking at ways that we can improve
Yeah.
what's
And
at.
also because the Breeze and other, other charter services to drop and pick people up there. Can we put air routes on those as well? So other people taking the Breeze or taking Pacific Crest can see it right there on the board as well, so.
Great, let's move forward with the route reports.
Okay, very briefly, this is one example of the route report. This is produced by a member of our dispatch team, who's on the route planning committee. They're very large spreadsheets, so maybe a little hard to share over the screen here. We can send this out to the committee afterwards, for information. But let's see, I'll zoom in on different parts and see if it's me. So quick overview of the route, showing how many stops, what the distance is, basic statistics by month for the past couple years to provide kind of a baseline. How does this route work? And then we take snapshots from there with our most recent month, and we can see daily ridership on the route. This is Monday through Saturday, and you can see peaks and troughs, and they're usually not terribly consistent. And then drilling down on a single day, looking at hourly trips. So the idea with these route reports is to get a taste of what's going on with this route. It's not an exhaustive analysis, but it helps you identify things for follow-up study, right? So if you see you've got that noontime peak there, right? Busy in the mornings and picks up in the afternoon steadily. So you get a feel for how things move with a route. And we can do this for each of the different routes using our Passio system where that is captured for us.
Or can I jump in on that area?
Yeah.
Or stay on that graphic? I've oversimplified this discussion around can't stopping one route, then adding another. The discussion is gonna be more dynamic than that. It's gonna be like, this is similar to what we see a lot on our fixed routes is, you know, we're not serving morning time yet, but yet morning and evening is, it may just be like, hey, let's run the bus 4 laps in the morning on that route. And then from 11 to 1, it just does extra Bend Redmond because we have higher usage then, and then it comes back, and it's gonna be those nuanced type of input about things, hopefully versus canceling an entire route. The example might be for the Chutes River Woods, hey, we just run a morning and night route at first to see how it works before we cancel another one. So I didn't mean to oversimplify that, but that's why this stuff is so important as we look at making those decisions.
Yeah. And all of our schedules, at least in Bend, are pretty consistent. They're 45-minute frequency throughout the day, right? So what Bob's talking about is we can do peak time service. So meet the demand where you see those peaks on the chart. And then that driver can be reassigned to other duties when there's less frequency needed. So there's different ways of playing around with scheduling like that. And then this is our schedule up here. So we try to integrate everything on one sheet, one-stop shopping, just to kick off the conversation with these different route reviews. You can see the unlinked trips, as we talked about earlier, travel distance in the entire month. PMT is passenger miles traveled. So when you add up this rider goes from this stop to that stop, that's passengers mile traveled. Add that up for all riders. How many miles are you serving? So different things here. Some of this goes into our federal reporting, but we have a lot more data than just that. There's a lot that we can look at. So this is for Route 7 down Greenwood and up to St. Charles. You can see all of our stops. And we've got some different clusters of stops. So we might consider which ones really need to stick around. Can we speed things up by removing a stop that's kind of redundant and still within close walking distance? And then we've got heat maps to show where those boarding and lightings take place. And then some interesting things is where you have paired stops, like something at one stop opposite each other on a street. you don't necessarily get consistent, ridership numbers. You know, one side might see more boardings and people don't get back on across the street. So it might be unbalanced for whatever reason. So there's different things like that we can look at.
On the service
There.
data sheet, when it says passengers per day, is that divided by days in the month, or is it divided by days that we're actually running that route?
Yeah, so for those of you that came in person, I printed out an example of, we're reformulating our board reports, and this is veering off a little bit of what we have here, but this is just as an FYI for you guys. Looking at the statistics that we put into our board reports, we've had the ones that you can see on the COIC website at every board meeting. There's a lot of information packed into those. But we've had some trouble maintaining them and confusion over what those numbers mean. So I've been trying to clarify productivity numbers with what we do. So what Eileen is asking about is statistics relating to passengers per day on each route. How do you compare different routes in different areas with different characteristics? You can look at how many passengers per hour. But if that route takes an hour and this one takes 20 minutes, you know, it might not be an apples to apples. So it's one way of kind of smoothing out the comparison, looking at how many passengers per day. So looking at November, where we had a bunch of holidays, we had, I don't think I had a number on there, like 19 service days on certain routes, whereas normally you'd have 26 or something like that, right? So it's taking that calendar month, the number of days we provided service. Rural routes, we don't operate on weekends, so it's fewer days of that month. So if you're looking at simple, how many boardings in a month for this rural route, well, you have to factor in that that's not operating on weekends, right? So this helps you make a more apples to apples comparison. But that is just a concept thing. We'll send it in our follow-up meeting packet for you guys to take a look at, and we might see something like this in future COIC board meetings. But that's just a, for example, to show what kind of data is available when we look at this. So any questions on these spreadsheets here? Anything that you'd like to see or have us dig into further?
Right, okay, thank you, Eric. So our next meeting is scheduled for February 18th, 2025. And we've got notes here to discuss the approach of setting the agenda, and then also consider the meeting length is 90 minutes enough. And my first question is, how is the meeting agenda set now?
Typically, we do that for you. But like I said, you are an independent committee and you can suggest topics. Now we'll work with you but those of you who've served on other committees like City of Bend, for example, you typically work with staff. We'll identify things that we have come down the line that like this is time sensitive, and we would like to get your feedback before June or whatever. So can we get an agenda time? We'll work with the chair, vice chair, or however you want to organize that. But typically all members of the committee can suggest items, and then the chair, or however you decide to organize it yourself.
Yeah, we certainly, on that numbered slide, not necessarily the data, we'll continue to present data all the time, but the, expanded service times and then ID card, those will all be topics every month for us basically this year. But I would recommend, with the chair, it's just, if people have ideas, sending you a note or us a note, and we'll, then we can hash it back out if it's important enough to cover with.
That sounds really good. Other committees will send out a draft and say, does anybody have anything to add to the agenda? Here's what we have coming up. That's another way to go too. I'm open to however it works best for you.
Yeah, I mean, the key point for it, if you think, our intent is not to keep anything, we're open on everything that we're allowed to be open on. So it's, hey, we'd like information on this or that, just make sure you ask, we're happy to provide that. We will fill time based on as we start showing like, how's this look for fair type of thing and getting input, the next couple will be full agendas for sure on that type of stuff, but we're happy to present on whatever, and if there's not time to present because we're too busy and it's just information, we can send that out too.
So maybe we should check in a week or so ahead of time. I send out a reminder to folks that the meeting is coming, send out any agenda items at that time. Kind of thing.
We try to do public notice a week out,
Yeah,
with
okay.
at least the broad agenda topics. They don't have to be exactly specific. But just broadly, what can you expect out of this meeting? So let's shoot for 2 weeks ahead.
2 weeks
We'll
ahead.
give a rough shape of things.
Do you guys post an agenda? A drafted agenda in Hawthorne at all?
No, but we can.
Can we start doing that?
Yeah.
Cause it'd be really nice to get more writers to.
Yeah, good idea.
Two things. I have Wednesday, the 19th for our next. Does that sound right? Or is it Tuesday, the 18th?
We've got 18th on this agenda here.
If we can confirm whether that is Tuesday, the 18th or Wednesday, the 19th.
It'll be
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Okay,
Wednesday.
Wednesday, the 19th. I think one of the things that I'd really like to hear, and we would need to prepare for the next agenda, is more about what we need to do with transfer trails for this coming summer. I am very interested in her suggestion about providing more southern transportation. Because, oh my goodness, we could pop in and pick up some of the tourists in Sun River as well, so we would at least have some sort of a summer connection between Bend and Sun River, if not Sun River and Pine. But she's right, there's good stuff on the south end of town that is, not going to conflict with her business. And I think it's something that we really ought to take a look at. And also potentially pickups on the east side.
Yeah. We'll just keep
And
reading.
do we have minutes? Who does the minutes?
We're looking at some AI tools that help us summarize. But right now Derek is, we lost our support person.
Is he still here? Oh,
He's online now.
hi, hey, Derek, we didn't do official approval of the minutes and I had a
We do
Scrivener.
have some.
We did.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have a Scrivener's. I'll just email you the Scrivener's. Well, I would have loved to have said Prineville, but I.
Yep, thank you. I'll correct them and post the final on the website.
Thanks.
And then another note here to consider the meeting length. 90 minutes is enough. We want to move to a different duration.
Did we extend it today to 2 hours just for the voting?
Partially, but these meetings used to be 2 hours long and then the membership dwindled. And we became a little more one direction. But now that we have a full body and an active membership, it might be worthwhile to take the extra time and use it. But that's entirely okay.
I mean, just from keeping time in this meeting, there's lots of conversation, some dialogue back and forth and using the full, we'll probably use the full breadth of the meeting by the time it's over with.
Yeah, it's tough to cut people off when there's just, good discussion going on topics, so. It's easy to finish early,
Denise?
tougher to stretch them, sorry.
Yeah, that would be my comment. I think having more time for conversation would be great. And if we finish early, then we're done versus trying to cram things through in an hour and a half. It's been my experience sitting on this for a number of years. So I vote for keeping it at back to 2 hours.
And that brings up a question, do we need a vote on duration change or can we just make a choice to?
It's just agenda setting.
Yeah, okay. Well, just for fun, is anybody opposed to having it be 2 hours long?
I'm in favor.
Okay,
I'm good.
okay. Informal voting, 2 hours long.
We're good.
Bob's rules.
Yeah. Bob's rules are
Sure.
more fun than Robert's rules. Yeah. Bob's rules.
We're good.
I learned that this last weekend in a meeting. It's like Bob's rules, awesome.
Okay, that sounds really good. So we've got member report outs and then go to order before we adjourn. So should we go around the room? See if any members have report outs? Let me start down this end of the room. Anybody's got anything they want to say?
We got a crowd of employees on those early buses, and especially on Saturday and Sunday. I think there was, I think the one that left Hawthorne at 6:40, there were actually 2 buses and packed. So I don't know if we could do something just on that to accommodate the employees, which I know are not revenue for us, but bachelor's paying for them. To add an extra bus Saturday, Sunday holiday.
So no bad,
At that
actually
building.
leases a vehicle from us to supplement that and build
Oh,
it
is
up.
that what it is?
So that one
Right,
that's
that one that
unmarked.
says-
Yeah,
Okay.
they're operating that directly.
We're all bringing it right.
More than likely, we're gonna renegotiate our bachelor agreement after this season, and there'll be a lot of those topics around their employee use too that they want to work through, and we want to support. At the same time, the past agreement wasn't in our favor as much as theirs, so there's a balance on using our funding correctly.
Is that one, the option of charging for parking on weekends?
Yeah,
So I think that bus was featured in a news report on Century Drive here this past weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Was-
Yeah.
Were they involved or was it just?
One of the buses slid.
That was.
I don't know that. I don't know.
technically, we own the bus, but they're operating it. Yeah.
Okay, nobody injured or?
No one was injured, but it ended up being a major cluster,
Yeah.
major.
Right, should we work our way around the room some more, Jordan?
I don't have anything really.
I'm good as well. Bob?
Nope, nothing further.
I think I just want to add in, I like the idea of the name, the cards, just because I think rider safety is a factor that's keeping a lot of people off the buses.
Give it to those.
Yeah, I would say,
Problem too. Is Donald gonna have the same cards?
yeah,
They will.
yes.
Who?
Right.
All Donald, all over this area.
I was gonna ask, actually, have you done a survey at all lately to see what the biggest concerns are for people that are not riding? And is safety always at the top?
I mean, on our informal ones, we're gonna do another survey next year that we're gearing up for, but generally. Informally, safety is always the #1 reason, and then, for some people, it's that there's not enough service, but then they're paused and they're like, but safety too, kind of thing.
So-
Yeah.
When they say safety, are they afraid of getting hurt or harassed on the bus? Or are they afraid of a bus sliding off of the?
Harassment, not
Primarily harassment.
the safety, yeah, the statistics on the
And
safety of
Warm
the bus
Springs has
is.
been one of the big ones for safety.
Correct, it's certainly within town here on a few routes too, that's what people draw to.
My next question is, are we ever gonna have Sundays?
That'll be something that we'll, present on, and I think that's where this priority system.
Cause a lot of people need to go to church or go to work and places like that.
I'll throw my last bit in here. I'm really excited to see the transformation of Redmond. I'm already seeing a positive improvement on ridership. I think expanding on the routes and adding to them will be a really, positive change for Redmond going forward. I had one more thing about the ID cards because for the passes. So something that's happened in other cities is people will share their transit passes with other people to use them that aren't registered on that pass. How do we prevent someone from using someone else's pass? So is it gonna have their photo on it, or is it gonna be something they can see on the computer that it's
I mean,
you?
the hopes are to get to a photo ID at some point to avoid that, but that may not be day one.
Right.
Yeah.
And then one other thing with the Redmond routes, that display screen that's at the Redmond hub still isn't working. I don't know why it's still on and not useful. I mean, you push the buttons and it doesn't scroll through the routes at all. It's just stuck on that no data. So they need to get a technician out there to look at that because it's not working like it should be. you should be able to push the button and then see all the different routes as you. So I thought I'd bring that up again, that people are frustrated with that.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you. And then members online?
Well,
that's it.
I have a few things to add too.
Oh, I thought you would, I'm sorry, I thought you shared.
Any comments online?
No, I'm fine. Thank you. It's been a good meeting.
Hey Brian, this is Derek. I'd like to just recognize Bob Bryant's service to this committee. And Bob, I looked up our emails. Looks like you were appointed in May of 2020. So got us through the pandemic. Thank you for your leadership, all your work on the transit master plan. You were a big part of that.
$30 an hour.
Yeah, and I would have brought a birthday cake if our celebration cake.
Where's ice cream?
If I didn't have to leave the meeting. So I just want to thank you. It's been a great honor to serve with you.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Really is.
We're like Girl Scout meetings where you get a little container and you would take your turn with the treats. So we could come up with a container and everybody takes their turn.
Well, there was granola bars and.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not cookies though, are they?
The only other feedback I had is just in case you guys may know, but OSU integrated our ID cards with CET, which was gonna be a pass to get on the bus. So assuming you're using the same technology, that would be easy integration when the time comes. So I definitely support moving that direction. And we have photos on our IDs, so that's helpful.
I'm a real fan of apps though, because like when I travel,
Oh, yeah.
I am way too cheap to take a taxi from the airport. And being able to download their app, or just ride, makes life so much easier for me.
The nice thing about the card is just this integration with that. It could be integration with the e-bike service the city provides. It could be with parking,
Right.
these card systems, the way they are, you can have a one size fits all type of shop, but you can just buy cards with an ID or with a.
RFID. or-
Yeah, and then you can relate them to whatever you want, right? It's just programming after that.
Nice.
Transportation wallet.
One small thing I'd like to bring up, this was in the past before the pandemic when there was a fare-based rate. I personally thought it was a little too expensive to charge for it to be $100 per month for the whole region. I think maybe cutting that down in the future, if that comes back again, to maybe 60 instead of 100, because a lot of people can't afford $100 a month for a bus pass. Usually you look at other places and they're about $50 or depending on but just something to like throw out there, because I noticed that was a bit of a blow on the pocketbook.
I think it depended on the region too.
Right.
Yeah, certainly it's not gonna be as complicated as the table was before.
Mhm.
Some of the weigh in on the fares, and certainly that's what the city of Bend wants to weigh in on, is what our fares shouldn't be just like, oh, it's 100, it's 5, it's 2, it should be based on this fare recovery percentage. The national average is around 35 to 38%. Some cities require 50% fare recovery if they want to support transit, which is not gonna happen here, but so it's really around that. How much, like a ride on the fixed route in Bend, a single ride generally costs us around $3.50.
Right.
So, 30% fare recovery would be in the dollar range on that, if that, but there's a lot more.
You still have to make revenue too
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Not hearing
No. And then, does anybody have anything for the good of the order, online or in the room?
Enjoy the holiday.
Yes.
Travel safe.
Thanks.
Bob's trouble.
Be safe. I'll be thinking of you all.
I'm-
So are we